So as an example, I could play a chord like this. I'm nice and happy, now I'm nice and sexy. Pharrell Williams is arguably the most legendary producer of the past 20 years. He has even influenced some of the biggest producers of today's era. With hit songs across multiple genres, he's worked with an endless list of artists, from his hard rap hits with Snoop Dogg and Jay-Z, all the way to teen girl pop for Britney Spears and Miley Cyrus. Pharrell is a living legend. He has shaped the sound of hip hop, R&B, and pop for over the past 2 decades. And today we're going deep into his production techniques, his philosophy, and I'm gonna show you how you can apply it to your music. But we can't tell this story without mentioning another name, Chad Hugo.
To me, I consider myself like a band, you know what I mean? Like, you got a song, let me be your band.
Together, they would go on to take over the entire industry in the early 2000s. So we have to start off by diving deep into their production team, the Neptunes.
Bling like the Neptunes sound. Yes, sir.
Both raised in Virginia Beach, Pharrell and Chad met in band class and started making songs together.
Sometimes, you know, I would go to his house to play because he had like Casio keyboards, and we would like make little tracks and just for fun.
Eventually, they would be discovered by Teddy Riley at a high school talent show.
I wrote down to the judges, you're gonna pick these guys right over here, the Neptunes. This is the winner.
Teddy gave them their first start by bringing them into the studio and including them on some of his R&B records. And by the late 90s, they had developed their own sound as a production duo and already had big hits with major artists such as Mace, Looking at Me, and Old Dirty Bastard, Got Your Money. But in the year 2000, they took things to a whole new level. And that year alone, they produced multiple chart-topping hits, including I Just Wanna Love You by Jay-Z and Southern Hospitality by Ludacris. Then the very next year, they had even more hits with P. Diddy, Usher, Busta Rhymes, and many more. The Neptunes pretty much owned the radio in the early 2000s. It was perfect timing because we were coming out of the 90s and everyone was ready for a fresh start, fresh sounds, and Pharrell and Chad seized the moment. Now, let's break down some of these iconic records that Pharrell and Chad did back in that early 2000s era. Even though they worked with a lot of different artists and a lot of different genres, all of their tracks had very similar key elements. Number one, they all had funky hand percussion, like tambourines, congas, and cowbells. And second, they all had some kind of quirky sound. Sometimes it would be a weird sounding synth, sometimes it would be a flute sample doing something cool, and sometimes it would just be a unique percussion sound that's carrying the whole song. Now in this era, most producers were still using hardware gear to make their beats. And when I think of the Neptunes, one machine comes to mind that became the pillar of their entire sound, the Korg Triton. Ironically, the year 2000 was when I first started producing music. I was about 10 years old, and my dad was also a musician, and one day I went down into the basement where he kept all his gear, and lo and behold, there it was, the Korg Triton. And here is that same Korg Triton here today, and it's just so crazy to think how everything goes full circle. At the same time I was learning how to produce on the Korg Triton in the year 2000, the Neptunes were making some of the biggest hits in the world on the exact same keyboard. So to start off our early 2000s era Neptunes track, we have to start with the most recognizable element of the production, the drums and the percussion. So Pharrell and Chad got drum sounds from all different places. Some of them were samples that they did themselves, some were drum packs that they got, and some were from the Triton. But what they did was they sampled their drums into the ASR-10. I don't have an ASR-10 to sample into, but I do have a Neptunes kit that I've had for years. You can find these on Google or Reddit. And what I did was I laid down a basic bounce, kick, and snare pattern, something very similar to what they do on a lot of their songs. Boom, ba, boom, boom, boom. Now Pharrell was a drummer, and one thing he always added to the tracks was some kind of hand percussion. This brought a lot of energy to the tracks, and it set it apart from everything else. So to liven things up for our track, I added some live tambourine and a shaker pattern. This is what we got. Now the way they used their hi-hat was really interesting. They didn't have the hi-hat playing the whole time through the beat. What they did was they played off of the main groove and they used the hi-hat, especially the open hi-hat, to accent certain hits. So I took two hi-hat samples, one closed, one open, played a simple pattern that played off of our groove that we already have, and this is what we got. Now it's time for the absolute secret sauce of Pharrell and the Neptunes. Come closer real quick. If you don't take anything else from this video, you gotta learn this. And it's called seventh chords.
There's something about major seventh chords. I think there were minor seventh chords in Dead Presidents. And he just, the way that nigga blacked out on it is just kind of like second to none. So
as an example, I could play a chord like this. I'm nice and happy, now I'm nice and sexy. One of my favorite Neptune songs that uses this technique is You Don't Have to Call by Usher. It goes B flat minor 7 to A flat major 7 to G flat major 7 to the F minor 7. These chords are even in songs that you wouldn't expect. So we all know the song Drop It Like It's Hot, right? That song is known for its beatboxing, percussion. But if you go back to that song, listen to the jazzy part. The part right before the beat loops. There's some seventh chords in there. So for our track, I went back to the Triton, I pulled up an electric piano sound, and I laid down these chords. Now it's time to fill out the rest of the melodic section. So I went through and found a collection of synth sounds in the Triton that they used on hit records. The first sound that I found is the same synth that they used on Britney Spears' I'm a Slave for You. Then you have the arco strings. Now the arco strings they used on a lot of different records. And another technique that I really loved that they did was they took strings or a pad and they ran it through a flanger and they gave it like this dreamy hypnotic effect. Then I also added a bell sound on top of our Rhodes melody just to bring that out a little bit. So we put all that together and let's check out what we got so far. Now let's add our bass and guitars. Can't talk about the Neptunes without mentioning their classic use of the synth guitars in the Korg Triton. Now on their own they sound pretty cheesy, but the way they work them into the groove and put them together, it just somehow works. Now they use them in different ways. Sometimes they use them as a rhythm, sometimes they use them as a melody idea. Check out this clip of Pharrell in the studio with Justin Timberlake as he comes up with this idea to use a guitar for a melody line in their song Last Night. And for the bass, they kept it really simple and sparse. Sometimes they only use the bass to emphasize the downbeat, and some songs don't have a bass at all. For our track, I came up with a funky offbeat guitar pattern and some minimal bass hits. Let's see how they work together with our music. Now it's time for what sets the Neptunes productions apart from everybody else's. The bridge. Their bridges almost create this dream-like escape that takes you away from the rest of the song and takes you to a whole nother world. Now this is not a music theory video. That will be a whole nother series on its own. If you guys want me to do a beginner chord theory video for music producers, let me know down in the comments and we'll work that out. But I want to walk you through these chords to show you what I'm doing, because if you can apply this to your productions in the right way, in the right moment, on the right song, this will level you up. So let me show you this. All right guys, I'm gonna go pretty quick, but I'm gonna put the chords on the screen and you can pause this if you wanna see the keys. So first we got the F minor 9. Then I went to this F minor 7 with a B flat in the bass. And then I went to this chord right here, which is an E flat major 9. Then I went to this chord right here. That's an E flat dominant 7th. And then I repeated it. F minor 9, F minor 7 with the B flat in the bass. Then this is where it gets crazy. I go to the C major 9. Let's see how that sounds. Now that we have all of our elements of our early 2000s Neptunes track, let's listen to the whole beat and see what we got. Hey, real quick, if you are enjoying the video so far, don't forget to leave a like on the video. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out my other videos. All right, back to the show. In the 2010s, Pharrell started to venture off and produce records on his own. He reinvented himself and leveled up his sound to new heights. He started using more real instruments, heavier sounds, and even developed his own unique producer tag, the iconic 4-count intro.
Let me put my shades on.
She about to go in.
Pharrell often talks about being excited by new and interesting sounds, and I think he wanted a fresh start away from the traditional Neptune style.
This record, I was like, you know what? I really want to feel it. I want to get high off the music, man. I want my body to fucking feel something.
He started to experiment with different grooves, and this is what I call the Pharrell disco era. He started to use some 808s and trap sounds when it called for it, but for our second track, I wanted to take inspiration from the sound that created some of his biggest hits in that era, and even still today, the disco funk sound. Even though Pharrell has taken a break from the Neptunes, his drums and percussion game was as strong as ever. And for our track, I wanted to tap into that. So for this track, I used drums from my splice pack that I did for Sample Magic Post Disco Boogie. And I laid down a very simple 4 on the floor drum pattern just to get the vibe going. Now, all throughout Pharrell's career, he used a lot of cowbell sounds. The cowbell is really cool because depending on how you sequence it or tune it, you can change the whole flavor of a song. For our track, I laid down a bouncy cowbell pattern, but I felt like it was a little bit too straightforward. So what I did was I ran it through a flanger just to give it a very unique sound, just to help it stand out. Now, Pharrell has this unique way of making something that's simple sound like it's complicated. And he does this by way of something called syncopation. He uses different instruments to play off of each other, and for our track, I wanted to do the same thing. So I laid down this conga pattern that played off of the cowbell, and then on top of that, I laid down some live claps, and let's see what all of that sounds like together. Since he was doing this new disco, funk, Motown kind of sound, he started crafting some bass lines. Now, bass lines in disco and funk are not just melodic instruments, they become a part of the rhythm. Now, I wanted our track to have a darker vibe with the bass, so I took some inspiration from tracks that he did with Nelly and Usher back in the 2010s era. Now, to start off the bass, I used a MIDI bass just to figure out the notes and get the vibe going. I used UVI soul bass and I laid down this minor scale bass line. Now, to take this up a notch, I plugged in my real bass guitar, played over the line, and got this. Now, to take this up a whole nother level, I plugged in my electric guitar and I played over it, and I wanted a little bit of extra edge, and this is what that sounds like. Now, I think this is sounding pretty dope, but now we need to add some melodic instruments, and Pharrell loved using the electric piano sound for this style. So since we moved on from the Triton, I went to my very own real Fender Rhodes and I laid down some chords. So let's jump on the Fender Rhodes and I'm gonna show you guys what I did. So for the main part of the beat, I kept it super simple. I just wanted to show you guys this. I did this A major 7th chord and I rolled it and then I went to this F sharp right here. And then I just went to this A half diminished chord right there. So it's just super simple. Now, to give our track a little bit more feeling, I wanted a nice funky clavinet sound. So I went to my very own real, I'm just playing, I don't have a clavinet. I used the Arteria plugin. In this era, Pharrell wasn't doing as many bridges as he was back with the Neptunes, but every once in a while he would throw a nice little switch up in there when the occasion called for it.
Oh, come on, oh, come on, oh, come on.
For the first chord, I played this A major 7 with a B in the bass. Then I played this A minor 7 with a C sharp in the bass. Then repeat, play the same thing again. Then for the last chord, I played an F major 7. So in context of our track, I added some strings and some synths to follow these chords, and this is what that sounds like. All right, we laid our drums down, we got our bass line, we got our melodics, our keys, our chords, our synths. Let's put everything together and see what we got. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Again, don't forget to leave a like and hit subscribe. Before you guys go, I want to leave you with this clip of Pharrell that really struck a chord with me. I think it will inspire you as well. Before you go, I want you guys to comment down below, what's your favorite Pharrell or Neptunes track? I would love to know. Also, I know there's some talk going on right now that that the Neptunes, I know they're having a legal dispute, and there's some talks that they're not speaking to each other, and I think that's really sad. But yeah, let me know what your favorite Neptunes track is, or Pharrell's track, and here's the clip that I want to leave you guys with. Until next time, peace.
We're in the universe. The universe is a part of everything that we do. It's so crazy for us to think like as individuals, everything comes from us. Your ideas, everything that you get is coming from a library of existence. Nothing is new under the sun. In fact, the sun that you look up at every day is one of trillions upon trillions upon trillions of other stars. Nothing is new. Once you realize the insignificance of yourself, then you understand what your actual significance is. You know, people think, man, I wrote the book. It's like, no, you don't understand. You're lucky to be a comma in the sentence of a paragraph that happens to be in a page of a book called existence. You're lucky to be the dot on an I. Lucky. Or turn it upside down. The dot on the bottom of an exclamation. You are lucky to be that. But imagine the people that walk around thinking that they are the book. And when I realized that broke me.
That's crazy, because there are days where I just do not feel like making music. And there's times where you get discouraged and you just think like, why even bother? And that opens my eyes to like, yo, even if you don't feel like it, just do it, because you might suck one day you might make some trash beats, but the next day it might be the best beat you ever make in your life, or just song in general. Yeah, because these ideas, they come from somewhere. They gotta come from somewhere, because some of the songs that I've written in my life, I don't know how I wrote them. I don't know where they came from. And yeah, I mean, I think they were just in the universe and I checked them out. That's pretty crazy.